We're joined on the line now by a guy by the name of Scott Taylor. He heads up an organization known as OPSEC, former Navy SEAL. This group contains people, former military, special operation, intel types. Scott, thank you for joining us here on Mornings on the Mall.
Thanks for having me, guys. I really appreciate it.
All right. Look, we're going to get into what happened going on in Iraq right now because there's breaking news on that. But let's talk about Benghazi for a moment because there has been some new reporting, this by Fox News. They interviewed a pilot who was involved in getting people out of Benghazi after the attacks occurred. And this person says that, the intelligence on the ground was that during the raid, the people who raided the compound got a hold of State Department phones and immediately started calling their higher-ups, and that this was listened to and known by the intelligence community. The importance of this is, of course, that it would suggest that perhaps this story about it was all about a video was something that they knew from the very start was not true.
Absolutely. I mean, look, we've been on Benghazi from day one, OPSEC. I want to applaud Congressman Wolf for really leading the charge on that in Congress, and hopefully Barbara Comstock will replace him. She'll be doing the same thing. But, folks have been saying all along to have countered this administration's narrative from the beginning that they knew exactly what was happening in real time, whether it was the drone, the surveillance drone. But more importantly, by law, there's phone calls that go out and message traffic that goes right to the National Security Council. So there's no doubt the president knew exactly what was going on there, and this just underscores that, and it also shows you that the narrative that they were pushing out afterward was just false.
Well, talk to me specifically, Delegate Taylor, about these phones and how they knew. Did they know in real time when these phones are used? Are they able to listen in on these phones because they are issued by the State Department? How soon do you think they knew that this was an attack and they knew the nature of the attack?
Oh, immediately. I mean, they're able to ping that. I'm sure that as soon as that was going on, any intel focus was immediately on what was going on once they knew that they were under attack, and they were certainly using SIGINT intelligence and picking up the phone and figuring out what was going on in real time. There's no doubt about it. And
that intel was picked up by whom? By the CIA, by the NSA, by the State Department? Who's on that?
I can't say for sure.
Okay.
It's either the NSA or CIA.
All right, great. Thank you.
All right, so you're going to actually be at the Select Committee hearings when they come up. You're going to be there to sort of talk about what you hear there, right?
Absolutely. We've been in Speaker Boehner's office. We've been trying to make sure that we get somebody there on the Select Committee, hopefully part of staff. And the thing with our organization is we have folks who understand exactly what questions are needed to ask, not political grandstanding, but what units. And for example, the story that just broke, we knew immediately that there are units that were able to respond, and they would have been chomping at the bit had they gotten the call and get there on time. So we're trying to put folks in there that can inform congressmen what questions, what specific ones to ask who about what units. And that's something that we think that we can tremendously aid the speaker and Trey Gowdy as well as they move forward.
Well, we'll come back to you when we get closer to that. Now let's talk about Iraq. Big breaking news. The president says we have a stake there. We can't allow these jihadists to just take over. Your thoughts on the situation in Iraq right now and whether or not the United States should go back in with airstrikes or perhaps, some other form of force?
Well, let me first say this is what happens when you advocate any leadership position in the Middle East. It just falls apart. And you have the administration was more concerned about winning the war in Iraq and having some sort of optics that he had done so without getting a status of forces agreement with Iraq, as well as leaving a stabilizing force. So it doesn't matter. We could talk about whether we should have been there or should have not been there. The fact is we were there. So you can't do it like Vietnam. You have to do it like Germany, where you leave a stabilizing force. Iraq has had divisions in Sunni, Shia, Kurds for 1,000 years, and the reason why Saddam was able to hold everything together is because he just ruled with brute force. So I'm afraid that you're going to see a breakup of Iraq. The Kurds are going to keep their region. You're going to see Sunni and Shia. That you're going to see a split up. And right now, what you have, of course, is the Islamic State of Iraq, who have been operating in Syria. The president didn't do anything about with the friendly rebels, if you will, 2.5 years ago, whether that was giving military aid, whether that was shepherding allies to help back them. He didn't do anything there. So, of course, then you had jihadis and foreign fighters and Islamic State of Iraq rolling in there, who were funded by the Qataris and Saudis because they're trying to counter Iran, who is Shia. Now what you have is, well, but let me say, by the way, they can't control them. So what you have now is the Islamic State of Iraq and Syrian rebels with foreign fighters who don't see state borders, of course. It's a transnational organization, and they're trying to set up an Islamic State that it encompasses part of Syria and Iraq, and they're, of course, marching on Baghdad. And Maliki, the Shia president in Iraq, has really done a horrible job as far as being inclusive with the other sects, and he's tried to rule with a Shia-dominated government, and that's backfired, of course, with him. As far as what the president does, I think we cannot let Baghdad fall. I mean, we have to. That doesn't mean it's boots on the ground, but it could be airstrikes, it could be drone technology in there. But I'm already getting reports. I got friends that are in the embassy right now in Baghdad, and things are getting really hot there, and they're starting to evacuate folks.
They are evacuating the embassy as we speak?
Well, these are private folks that are being evacuated. I'm not sure if the embassy has made the call yet to evacuate all the.
Well, hold on. You said these are private folks. Now, you're a former Navy SEAL, Scott Taylor. You're the chair of OPSEC. That means that you are connected with Special Forces and CIA. These private folks are working for private security firms. Is that fair to say?
That's fair to say, yeah. And they're working with private companies that are contracting over in Iraq, and they've been evacuating since, I believe, Wednesday. But you're hearing reports out of there that there's some sniper fire, there's some mortar fire that's just north of Baghdad, and they're taking all precautions, of course, to get their folks out there and make sure that they protect them.
Listen, your brothers in the SEALs and in the CIA, they paid a heavy price in Iraq. And when the president decided, along with Joe Biden and along with Hillary Clinton, that we were done there and we were getting out, and I think there was about 3 months' notice after they couldn't reach a forces agreement there with the government of Iraq. Joe Biden said this.
And I am very optimistic about Iraq. I think it's going to be one of the great achievements of this administration.
And by the achievement, he meant getting out of Iraq. Looking back now and seeing what's going on in Baghdad, what is your impression of the president, the vice president, his entire team, and their strategy with Iraq?
You know, with all due respect, it's a joke. I mean, I served in Iraq and Habbaniyah and Ramadi and Baghdad, and everybody out there who has served there are looking at this with just completely being disheartened. I mean, you have, again, these guys were more worried about telling the domestic public here that they had ended the war, and of course they're touting it to get reelected, stuff like that. And they failed, Hillary Clinton as well, failed to get a Status Forces agreement to get immunity for American troops with Maliki and leave a small stabilizing force behind. Now, again, let's not argue whether we should or should not be there. We were there. So that's what you have to do. If not, this is exactly what happened. And because they failed to do that, they didn't keep Maliki in check. He didn't govern inclusively. He just governed with his, on the sort of Shia-dominated. And we don't have a stabilizing force here.
Right.
So this is what's happening. And this is what's going to happen in Afghanistan if we don't do the same thing.
It is definitely a cautionary tale there.
Scott Taylor, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Greatly appreciated.
Thank you all for having me. Have a great day.
It's 7:50. But think of that. Special Ops, CIA, OPSEC, and now he has to go to Richmond to deal with those people there on the budget.
Yeah, we failed to mention he is a Virginia delegate.